see them. Okay, now the deltoid muscles holds your humerus into your shoulder girdle. This comes down. Just a little bit below the rib cage, and then your ulna and radius come down, and they're not quite as long as your humerus, up just a little bit. And sometimes, you know, I don't know what I've done wrong. I mean, I always make a mistake in my drawing, and sometimes that's the nice thing about a drawing. It's not exactly, you know, like a stencil. But it could be that I've elongated my ribs just a little bit more than they should have, where I'm finding out how my elbows fit. So if I do one part of the body wrong, I might do another part of the body wrong. But I do know that the hand, the index finger goes about to the mid-thigh. So if you're standing there and you hold your hands down and you figure out where, my daughter says, this is your thumb, this is your pointer finger, this is your cursing finger, this is your ring finger, and this is your pinky. So if you put your cursing finger down in the middle of your femur, that's about where the hand ends up. So you have this length, that length, that length. You have this length right here, the longest bone, and you have the tibia and the fibula. And if you can imagine that the tibia, if I draw it over here to the side, it's sort of shaped like this. It becomes the ankle on the interior, and the fibula comes down, it's behind it, and it becomes the ankle on the exterior. Just like the ulna and the radius, there are two bones up in the arm. The radius is at the top, the ulna is in the back. You have two bones here in the foot. Okay, so if I sort of flesh this guy out just a little bit more, I'm thinking more skull here than I'm trying to, you know, really. And then we have the vertebrae beginning. We have the clavicle, and it kind of dips down. Remember, we got the sort of the pit of the neck right in there. We've got, and I told you something wrong the other day. I got mixed up. I told you the manubrium's this little bump at the end. That's the xiphoid process. The manubrium's the first bone of the sternum. Gladiolus is the second bone of the sternum, and the manubrium marks the middle of your rib cage, and that's that little bump right there. And you have 12 ribs. 11th and 12th are just sort of half ribs, and then all of your ribs sort of come across like this. And remember, it's sort of more pointed at the top than it is at the bottom. Then we have our vertebrae going down into the pelvis. We have the femur coming out, and it kind of goes out and back in. It's sort of like a hockey stick shape like that. So it goes out, goes in, and then we have our legs underneath. And we'll get into all the bones of the feet later. There's an awful lot in there, but not to complicate it too much. So for our quiz, I'd like for you to be able to draw this in a 7-head proportion. And be able to show where the skull is, show where the clavicle is, show where the acromion process is, the humerus, the radius is on top or front in this position. The ulna is behind or under. Then we have the pelvis, rib cage. We have femur. We have this sort of Nilla wafer shaped guy on there. Got your patella. And then in the front, which becomes the lower interior ankle, I'm sorry. This is the tibia. And the bone behind it that becomes your outer part of your ankle is the fibula. Alright, now, gesture drawing is when you start out very lightly, and then once you get the mass conception figured out, then you can go back in there and you can start to change things. Cut into it slightly, maybe sharpen it more towards the top, cut up from the bottom. So a mass conception of the ribs could be a circle. In some ways it doesn't work because we're 1.5 circles here, but with gesture drawing you can do these working lines underneath. Don't feel you are compelled to do contour line drawing where you're starting out with a clavicle, a manubrium, a gladiolus, a xiphoid process, and you have to do all the ribs off of this. That doesn't really work for where we are with drawing. Okay? That would be something you'd finish up with. Even the excellent drawers from anatomy books would have done some kind of preparation drawing and they would have traced over the top. So you may feel like a good drawer can contour line draw perfectly, but that's really a falsehood. So just draw this way. And some of your drawings may be very light gray sketches first to get the basic proportions, and then come back with a darker pencil over the top to get those kind of clean contours. Okay? So 7 heads. The first head stays the same, and then everyone else, 1.5 is the pit of the neck. Then at the end of 2, or at the end of 3, that's the end of the ribs. In the middle of 4 is the center of the patella, or the center of the pelvis. When we get down here between the 5th and the 6th, that's about where the knees would be. And we get down to the bottom head, that's where the feet sit. Now, does that look approximately in proportion? El Greco would do things more like 8 heads. I don't know if you know him, but he saw the body as being more elegant and elongated and beautiful that way. So he would make them much more stretched out. But you know, there's all different ways to do it, and I'll show you another one next time. But this is the 7-head proportion system. Okay? So I'm going to give you a chance to draw this once for me on your own now.